Good morning. Good morning, Rabotai. Good Chodesh, Rabotai. Chodesh Rahamim ve'Selichot. Very important month. Good to have you with us, and good to be back. Good to be back in the swing of things. This week of breakfast and the class is dedicated in loving memory of Amy Haber Aleh Shalom, Lilu Nishmat Gittel Bracha Bat Altalea, an amazing mother, wife, daughter, and friend. During the week of her Azkara and Yortzeit, we love you and miss you, Jimmy and Nathan Haber. Also dedicated in loving memory of Michael Winnick Alav Shalom, Lilu Nishmat Menachem and Sarah, for his Shiloshim by his wife Gloria and his children Shari, Simone, and Aaron. May his neshama have an aliyah. Also dedicated in loving memory of Esther and Nisim Swed, Alema Shalom. Lilu Nishmatem Esther Bat Frida and Nisim Bat Ben Latifa, Alema Shalom, on Azkara during his Shana, sponsored by their son Jamie Swed. Breakfast in the class is dedicated for speeding completely for Hashem and Chana Bat Simba Fega. The learning for this week is dedicated by the Torah Center, the Daniel S. Loeb Torah Center, Diamond Donors, Morris S. and Esther Levy, in loving memory of Stephen and Renee Levy, Alehem Shalom. This entire year of breakfast and class is dedicated in loving memory of Nishmat Ruth Bat Adela Orfali, Aleha Shalom, sponsored by her family. And the week of Kobru is sponsored by David E. Ash in honor of you and your substantial capacity to do good today and every day. My friends, let us begin. We have a beautiful pasuk that I'd like to draw your attention to. The pasuk says, Som tasim alecha melech. Place, you shall surely place upon yourself a king. Now, this idea of a double expression in the pasuk is something that we find very often in the Torah. Now, we just had it in last week's parasha a bunch of times. Naton titen. Give, you should give. Patoach tiftach. Open, you should open. Hashev tashiv. Return, you should return. Ha'anek ta'anik. Make sure you give him a gift. Hakem takim imo. Again and again and again. In fact, let me illustrate one example of why the Torah would say the same word twice in a row. The pasuk says, Hocheach tochiach. Rebuke, you shall surely rebuke. Gemara says, what if you tell a guy, listen, your tefillin's not supposed to be down. Some people, I don't know why, maybe they don't have a tissue, so they're wiping their nose with their tefillin. I don't know why they think the tefillin is supposed to be down over here, right? But the guy's tefillin is here. You tell him, listen, it should be up here. The next day, again, tell him. The next day, again. The next day. How many times do I have to tell the guy? Says the Gemara, Hocheach tochiach, rebuke you shall surely rebuke, afilu mea pa'amim, even 100 times. The rabbis explain that afilu mea pa'amim does not mean 100 times to the exclusion of 101. It means an infinite amount of times, ad infinitum. My friends, so when we say the word Som tasim alecha melech, it carries with it the power of a commandment that is constantly being reinforced. So it seems like the Torah is quite keen for you to put a king on the Jewish people. However, our Chachamim tell us that God looked at the Jewish people's request to have a king in a very negative way. Hashem says, the Navi says, what are you asking for a king for? You already have one. Amonai Melech. What does that mean? Hashem is the king. What do you need a king for? You already have one. Our Ashkenaz friends would say, what am I? Chopped liver? By the way, I do not know what the Syrian equivalent of that statement is. No one has ever said, what am I? Hamud? What am I? No, I've never heard that. What am I? I never heard a single guy ever say anything like that in my life. So I have to find the Arabic expression of that.
That's because our food is so good.
Okay, with this, you're saying that's why we say the same one. We also say, what am I? I'm not sure, I don't know what the version is. Okay. Now, my friends, actually, maybe I did hear the same energy once. I had an elderly man who, what's it called? So we didn't hold the door open for him. He was very upset. And he said, you know what I felt like? I felt like zift. He said it like that. But he didn't just say, he like spat it out. Zift is like a nothing, right? That's how he said it. So maybe that would be the equivalent. All right. Sorry? He used to call his dog zift. Okay. The dog thought it was a term of endearment. Little did he know. Okay. My friends, Isma, I want you to hear this concept because it's really beautiful. So the Navi says, what is God? Nothing? You don't have a king, you need another king? But I don't understand. Som Tasim is an instructive terminology. It's telling you, you should in place. Make sure you have a king. Not only once, but Som Tasim. So, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Is it a negative or is it a commandment? So the Sfarim tell us something very interesting. The hint is actually in looking at the context in the pasuk behind. Yitz, can I trouble you to make me a coffee with milk and 1 sugar? Thank you very much. That's good for yours. For me, 1 sweetener. So no sugar. She's right, but 1 sweetener. Okay. She don't want me to have sweetener either, but I'm the boss of me. Anyway, let's let's continue. So, my friends, I want you to pay attention to the pasuk that precedes this. The pasuk says, when you come to Eretz Israel, we have someone sitting amongst us who's doing the beautiful process and went through all of it to be able to kitavo. Almost there. Eretz Israel's niknit b'yisurin, says the Gemara. And they're making sure they follow that Gemara to the nth degree. Okay? Now, Isma, I want you to hear this. This is so important. Okay? The pasuk says you come to the land of Israel and you will say, Asima alai melech. I want to put a king on over me. Kechol hagoyim. Like all of the nations that I am living amongst. Say the Mefarshim. If the Jews want a king, no problem. But when they ask for a king, Kechol hagoyim, like everybody else, what is the motivation for what they want? Not a king that's going to guide them, that's going to lead them, that's going to ensure that the Torah law is instituted in the land, that the people are following in the right way, that they're giving their money to the Beit HaMikdash, that they're not following Avodah Zarah. That's not what they want. They want the trappings of a king. They want to be able to have the parade. They want to have a coronation ceremony. Because you know what? The English have it. And the Saudis have it. And that's what we want. If what you want is coming from that, says Shemuel, then it's NK, it's not kosher. Thank you so much. Ya'avducha Amim. Please only answer Amen if you're listening to this live. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה baro. My friends, listen to what this means. That means that it's not only important what you do, it's also important why you do what you do. And my friends, sometimes the what can be kosher and the why is not kosher. And what does that do? It makes the whole action not kosher. Let me give you an example of what this looks like in a wider context. Sometimes you might have a person, and this person is doing a great act of tzedakah. But why are they doing an act of tzedakah right now? Someone might think, excellent, that it's being announced. You know, people will hear. But you know what? We actually say about that, mitoch shelo lishma, ba lishma. Even if you did a mitzvah and it's not really for the right reasons, but eventually, it will come to be for the right reasons. But Tosafot says that there's a difference between when you do it for in honor or whatever, or when you do it for a negative reason. Let me explain. He says some people, when they study Torah, it's not for the sake of purity. You know why they study Torah? To put down somebody else. And by the way, you know when you could see it? a guy who doesn't know anything. The second he learns one halakha, he's busy correcting everyone with that halakha. You just learned your first halakha. You're running around telling everyone what to do. When a guy is learning like that, you see, what is he using the Torah for? Likanter, it's called. And Tosafot says, if a person learned likanter, he's better off not having learned at all. Because he was using it to cause machloket. So sometimes, what we do, even though it's a beautiful thing, studying Torah, but the why is a problem. My friends, they just started a new cycle called Biki'im Ba'alacha with Rabbi Mansour, Rabbi Eli Mansour. And many, many people are studying halakha with him. They're studying all the laws in Yalkut Yosef. They're following the book in Hebrew and in English. Everyone can get involved. Everyone should get involved. They just started a new book. It's a good time to join. A person could start learning halakha because, you know, why? They want to know the right thing to do. And a person could learn halakha so that they could be the guy that shouts down the Hazan. You know, if that's your motivation, then it makes it impure. But my friends, there's something here a little bit deeper. And I want to share an example of this story. I went a long time ago with a group of young men and women from England to South Africa. And we went on a trip, on a social action trip. We went to visit the poorest neighborhoods in the world. A place where people don't have food to eat, they don't have proper and adequate shelter, you know. And we took these kids there and we spent 2 weeks in South Africa touring. And some of the time that we did, we spent there in Soweto, a place which is just heartbreaking. What's going on over there? Sewage in the streets, inadequate housing, freezing in the winter, boiling in the summer. And we went and we did some beautiful things. We planted a garden for the kindergarten. We helped them renovate something. We painted some places. It was a beautiful experience for everybody. And the kids, they came and they saw these kids didn't have clothes. Some of them didn't have shoes. And they felt terrible. And they were giving them, you know, they were giving them money. They were giving them one of the kids gave a kid a camera that she had. Anyway, it was very beautiful. One of the young men on the trip, very sensitive young man, came up to me and he said something brilliant. What did he say? He said, Rabbi, I don't understand. What are we doing? I said, what do you mean, what are we doing? We're doing hesed. We're doing tzedakah. We're helping. He says, I don't understand. What are we doing? I said, what do you mean? He said, look at these kids. They have nothing. He says, but look at them. Every one of them, his smile is bigger than the next. They're happy. They're enjoying their life. He says, look at my friends. We come from the lap of luxury. Not one kid has a smile on his face ever. Everyone's in therapy. Everyone's depressed. And listen what he said. He said, so if we're miserable and we have everything, why are we giving them what we have? If we're happy, if they're happy and we're not, why are we giving them what we have? I gave the guy a hug. What a sensitive, beautiful observation. Doc is absolutely correct. Maybe that's what's going to make us happy, to give a little bit of ourselves. The problem is, if you make them like us, then they're not happy. I'm not sure if that counts as giving. My friends, listen to this because this is super powerful. Says the Pasuk to every one of us, if you're happy and they're miserable, why are you giving them? Why are you giving them what they have? Am Yisrael, we have family units. A lot of importance is placed on relationships, on kindness. You have people banging down the door trying to join the Jewish people. You know how hard it is to go through a conversion, whether or not the community accepts it. You know how hard it is for someone to go become a ger? It's difficult. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of learning. People are struggling to be able to come into the doors. And what are you doing now? You want a king like they have? You want to copy them when you have happiness and you have Torah and you have the midot and you have the values and you have the... why would you do that? But my friends, this feeling is something which is almost ubiquitous. So much of what we do to be like them. How many people came to this country with a name, and at Ellis Island, or a week after, they changed it from one name to the other to feel more American. You know, I was just having this conversation with my son-in-law. You had people, their names were Davidoff, or whatever. They came to the country, their name was Aminoff. They came to the country, what's their name? Amin. What's your name? David. What's your name? Not Goldstein. What's your name? Taylor. People were changing their names to be more American. At what point did we decide that we should start having English names? Where does that come from? One of the redeeming factors, quite literally, of Egypt was that they did not change their names. Now, I'm not saying you're allowed to, you're not allowed to. I'm looking at what is the motivation to change it. Why do I need to be Steve? I remember my whole life doing this on the phone. Yes, Shlomo. S-H-L-O-M-O. Sorry. S is in Sam. H is in Harry. L is in Llama. O is in oh my God. My friends, my whole life was like that. So my first daughter, her name was Charna. I was like, I am dooming this woman, this girl, to a lifelong experience on the phone. And by the way, and I grew up when you had some slim sliver of a chance that the person answering the phone on customer service was actually American. That chance and that ship has sailed. What is she going to do? So I was like, you know something? I'm going to give her an English name so that when she's doing all those phone calls, she could say her name is Cheryl. Do you know what I did after one kid? I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that ever again. It was a mistake. It was incorrect. So she has a passport name. We don't call her that. No one calls her that. But my friends, the rest of my kids in their passport is Shoshana, right? Rachel, Sarah. Yeah, every one of them. They have their full name. My son is Isaac. You know why? Because in Halab they would call them, the name for Yitzhak was Isaac, right? So in honor of my father, his passport is Isaac. But Rivka, those are the names. Now, this is not a crusade for you to name your children after the avot, the imahot, the biblical characters. Although I'm happy for it also to be a crusade for that. However, that's not my point here. My point here is the motivation, the why. Why do we decide we have to do it like them? Look around. How is this country managing right now? Pretty bad. Is this what you want? Why would you copy them? You know what the most astounding thing for me about socialism is, and the democratic socialists? The most astounding thing for me is not that they subscribe to socialism or communism. That's not surprising to me. Lots of people have lots of different political opinions and affiliations. Who are you looking at and thinking, you know something? I want what they have. Which communist, socialist country has succeeded so brilliantly that they're doing so well that you're deciding that I need to bring that here. We need to import that here. You go somewhere, you taste delicious food, you bring it in. Has anyone ever gone to a country, tasted something vile, you spit it out, blah, you vomited, and you thought, you know something? We need to have that in New York City. Why are we importing garbage? Why are we importing something that doesn't work? My friends, Look around. Which nation has something that we want? The only thing we want from them is to leave us the heck alone. Says the Pasuk, I don't mind if you want a king, but you want a king to be like them? I had a meeting a couple days ago. School was telling me they're doing this unbelievable new program. And I was very impressed and also very depressed. You ever been impressed and depressed at the same time? It's quite a unique feeling. Let me tell you what impressed me and depressed me at the same time. We're talking about this from a school's perspective, and the school said, you know something? We've had it with the phones. It's destroying our children. These smartphones, the kids are sitting there, and who knows what they're getting up to, and who's getting to them. And besides for the safety issue, the focus and the ADHD and the obsession and the minimizing contact and the minimizing conversation and communication, etc., etc. He said, that's it, we've had it. We've decided there are no more phones for third graders. I was like, was that on the table? Was that something guys, no more infants with smartphones. I was like, this is the thing that we're proud of? Look, I'm impressed that we're instituting it. I'm depressed that that's something that we should be proud of. But the schools are deciding that you can't have a smartphone for a third grader. Because that's where and then they're going to expand it to fourth, to fifth, to sixth. That's how they're going to go, okay? But for now, it's like fourth grade, we can't say no. Now, let me say, I want you to hear this, because it's so powerful. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? This is happening because, on a certain level, we've accepted the idea that what society says is good, what society says is okay, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. Yeah? Good enough for them, good enough for me. We're asked by this pasuk to look at what's being pushed down our throats by society. The idea that kids will think that it is a good, smart thing to spend all of their time making videos of themselves mouthing the words of songs, doing some ridiculous dance. Why did that need to be put out into the world? Why is that an important contribution? But once the kids see the other kids do it, then not only do they appreciate and think, wow, look at what they did. Now I have to do it. Look what they have. Now I have to have. And if I don't have it, what kind of loser am I? I'm out of the crowd. I'm not being contacted. I'm being kept out of the plans. My friends, the Torah here is addressing this, and it is a cancer. You know something? For once, could we just be our own arbiters, our own decisors for what we want in our homes, with our families, for our people, for our community? And when you look around and you see the sorry state of the world around us, tell yourself, you know something? I better install double paned windows on my home. I don't want any of that in here. I want another lock on my door. I don't want any of that in here. So Hashem says, Som tasim alecha melech. Put yourself a king. If that's the what. But if the why is so that I could be like them, not kosher. Hashem should bless us to value what we have, to have our eyes wide open and understand how deficient, how bankrupt, how broken what is going on out there is. I heard yesterday a speech, and I'll end with this, from a sheriff in California. I don't know if every one of you saw this speech. You all should. And one of the things he talks about is the crime that's rampant in the state, at the state level. And he explains that the crime is rampant because the government is passing rule after rule, law after law, to protect criminals, and law after law ignoring the victims. Never demanding accountability from the people that are perpetrating the crimes, and always creating more and more laws to make it more difficult for the victims to be able to demand the accountability that they are owed and that they are due. And one of the examples he gave was that they raised the amount of money that it would take in order for someone to be considered a thief, more than petty larceny. And what made it a felony? Making it over $1,000. What did that do? Effectively, it allowed every criminal to walk into any store, look at the price tag of an item, $999.99, we're good. Hashorat. Go shopping for the week, no problem. Just keep it under $1,000, walk right out the door. This is what's happening. And the sheriff said, and now, when it's come time for election season, what are they telling you? They're telling you, look, we're cracking down on crime. And look at how we're cracking down on crime. Because we're lowering the amount of money that it takes in order for it to be a felony. First of all, Hazaku Baruch, who raised it? That now you're taking claps for the fact that you're lowering it. You raised it. Now you're lowering it. I should thank you for that. But not only that, the sheriff said, look at the fine print on the bill. They lowered it to $400. And then they gave you 3 times to get caught and convicted of your $400 theft before the law kicks in that it is now not just petty loss. It just blows the mind. So my friends, forget Democrat, forget Republican, forget politics, forget voting. The idea that the Torah says, thou shalt not steal. That's what we have. That's what we believe. And what's the response to something if you stole it? Thou, right? Hashev, tashiv, shivet agizla. You have to return it. Our values are, you found something that somebody lost, return the lost object. That's our values. And you want to be more American? That's what you want to be? That's what you're pining for? You're pining to be more like the nations of the world? Who's got something that we want? If you could understand and feel the power of this message, then my friends, then we're well on our way to understanding what it means to institute a Jewish melucha. Not a kingdom like other nations want to subjugate all the other nations. We want all the other nations to live happily in their land. You stay where you are. You leave us alone. But you know what we want? We just want the right to self-determination, to decide for ourselves what we want in our lands, in our communities, and in our homes. May Hashem bless us to be able to see that. Bekarov, mamash. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi